People think a funeral is a time for comfort. For two little girls, it was the beginning of a nightmare. Moments after their father was lowered into the ground, their stepmother, Isabel, threw them out. She tossed their belongings onto the street, ignoring their tear-filled pleas. "This house is mine now," she sneered, her red dress a stark contrast to the somber day. But just as the girls huddled together on the curb, a black sedan pulled up. A millionaire, William Mason, witnessed the entire horrifying scene. He was stunned. He was their father's best friend, arriving too late for the funeral. But as he stared at the woman he thought was a loving wife, and the two children he'd promised to protect, he knew he wasn't too late to stop this. The unexpected action he took next would change all three of their destinies forever. What city are you watching this video from, and what time is it? By the way, if you're enjoying my videos, I'd be so happy if you could subscribe to my channel and like this video. William Mason had just collected his suitcase from the airport. The afternoon sun lit up the gray streaks in his hair. He was exhausted from the long flight, but his mind was fixed on one thing: getting to the house of his best friend, Mark Thompson, who had passed away far too young. Mark wasn't just his business partner. He was one of the few people Will trusted, a man he considered a brother. At 45, Will was a successful entrepreneur in the solar tech industry, owner of a fortune many admired. But behind that image was an emptiness no wealth could fill. Scars from a childhood where his own mother and stepfather had kicked him out, leaving him to shiver in the cold rain with nowhere to go. That memory had haunted him for years, turning him into a reserved man who lived on a sprawling Napa estate he never truly called home. He had missed the funeral. A flight delay had stolen his chance. By the time his plane landed, the service had been over for hours. All he could do now was drive from the airport to the house where friends and family had once gathered in warmth. The weight in his chest felt like a stone as he drove. He wanted to see Mark's wife and daughters, share their grief and offer his support. But more than anything, he wanted to make sure his friend's two little girls still had someone to lean on. The car stopped in front of the familiar iron gate. Withered wreaths from the funeral lay scattered along the brick pathway. Will cut the engine, grabbed his keys, and got out. He was about to ring the bell but froze the instant his foot hit the porch. He was stunned, a chill running down his spine at the scene before him. Isabel Carter, Mark's second wife, stood firm in the doorway. She was only 35, youthful and strikingly beautiful, her makeup flawless, dressed in a bright red dress. That color was a direct challenge to the air of mourning. Will remembered clearly. While Mark was alive, Isabel had always seemed sweet, always smiling warmly at the daughters Mark had from his first marriage. Back then, Will thought his friend had been lucky to find a woman who understood and cared. The scene before him erased every trace of that impression. Isabel was clutching a stack of papers in one hand. With no help from any staff, she was throwing the girls' belongings out herself. A small school backpack hit the brick floor, followed by hastily folded clothes, and then even a worn-out teddy bear. Her voice rang out, cold and sharp. "This house has no more room for your things. Your father left the inheritance in this house to me. You have to get out of my sight." Then a cry tore through the air. Chloe Thompson, the older daughter, only 7 years old, ran and clung to the backpack that had just been thrown. Her face was red and swollen, her small hands trembling. Mia, her twin sister, stuck close to her, her fragile body shaken by sobs. Chloe screamed, her voice hoarse but still fighting. "This is our house. Please let us stay. We just want to stay." Mia broke into sobs, her pleas choked. "Please, can we have Dad's picture? We beg you." Isabel stood still, her crimson lips curving into a cold smile. "I already told you. From now on, this house belongs to me. And I'm not leaving you even that picture. Don't even dream of it. Go away and stop calling me Mom. I'm sick of you." Will froze. The scene felt like a knife reopening an old wound. He remembered himself at 13, clutching a small bag, thrown out of his own home as the door slammed shut. The image of the two little girls, hugging and crying as they begged for mercy, tightened his chest. He stepped onto the porch, his voice low but firm. "Stop it, Isabel." "What are you doing to my friend's daughters?" Isabel turned, noticing Will. Her eyes flashed with annoyance before hardening. "You're too late, William. The funeral was hours ago. As for these two, they have nothing to do with you. Leave. This isn't your business. Chloe squeezed her sister's hand, her tear-filled eyes rising to Will, loaded with desperation. She didn't trust adults, but in that moment, a fragile hope clung to the man before her. Will stood still, a wave of memories hitting him. He saw himself as a child, abandoned. He had once sworn he would never let another child suffer that fate if he could help it. He bent down, his eyes softening, his hand extending toward them. His voice came out hoarse but clear. "Come with me, girls." Silence fell. Chloe shook her head, her voice breaking. "I don't know who you are. What if you leave us too, like our stepmom did?" Will paused. He took a deep breath, then answered slowly. "If I intended to leave you, I would have walked away. But I didn't. Chloe, I know what it feels like to be abandoned, and I won't let it happen again." Mia pulled on her sister's hand, her voice trembling. "Sister, maybe we should go with him." Chloe bit her lip hard. She looked at Isabel, then at Will, her small heart torn. Yet in that man's eyes, for the first time, she saw no lies. Isabel crossed her arms, smirking. "And who do you think you are? These two brats are just a burden. This house, every brick, is mine. They have no right to be here." Will turned his head, his eyes icy. "They are my friend's daughters, and that alone is enough for me to step in." He bent down again, his hand still extended. "Come with me, girls." Chloe hugged Mia tightly. Her scared eyes landed on Will's outstretched hand. "Was it safe to follow a stranger?" Isabel's bitter voice cut through. "What are you waiting for? You'll never set foot in this house again." "Get lost!" Mia burst into tears, burying her face in her sister's shoulder. "Sister, I don't want to stay with her." Chloe bit her lip until it hurt. The sting of rejection tore at her, but the steady hand in front of her remained patient. With a trembling decision, she closed her eyes, tears rolling, and placed her small hand in Will's. Mia immediately grabbed on, terrified of being left behind. Will gently tightened his grip. When the car door closed, the sky suddenly darkened. The rain poured down, lashing the windshield. Will started the engine without looking back, but in the rearview mirror, he could still see Isabel standing there, her red dress bright in the storm, her eyes cold. The corner of her lips curved in a strange smile. The car drove away into the downpour. Will knew his life had just taken a new turn. The sound of the rain outside grew heavier, pounding furiously against the glass, mixing with the contained sobs of the two girls. Will gripped the steering wheel, the chill seeping into his damp shirt. In the back seat, Mia was curled up, hugging a portrait of their mother, the mother they never really knew, against her chest. Her small hands clung to the wooden frame. Chloe sat bolt upright, her eyes fixed on the rain-streaked window. She wasn't crying aloud, but her fists were clenched so tight her knuckles turned white. The atmosphere in the car was unbearably heavy. Will looked at the two sisters in the rearview mirror. He saw himself, more than 30 years ago, sitting in a strange car, lost between hope and despair. He cleared his throat. "Are you hungry? Maybe some bread or some hot soup?" Chloe turned her head, her red eyes locking onto him. Her reply came fast and firm. "We're not used to eating food from strangers." Will froze. The words hit him like a punch. Years ago, he had said the exact same thing to someone who tried to help him. His grip on the steering wheel tightened. He fought to keep his voice steady, not wanting the girls to see the pain her words had ignited. The silence returned, broken only by the rain. He knew trust wasn't built with words. It had to be earned. Inside Chloe, another voice echoed. Her stepmother, Isabel, had been kind once, too. When their father was still alive, Isabel would cook for them, sometimes stroking Mia's hair. She had even given Chloe a small hairpin. Both sisters had believed they had gained another mother. But the moment their father closed his eyes, everything changed. The woman took off her mask of sweetness and revealed her cold, ruthless, true self. That memory was why Chloe couldn't trust any adult. Kind today, cruel tomorrow. It was all just a lie. She turned her face to the rain-soaked glass. Will saw her reflection in the rearview mirror, and his heart clenched. He understood the girl's distrust wasn't just of him, but of an entire world of adults who had failed her. The car continued on. More than an hour later, the road opened up, and an imposing estate appeared through the rain. The iron gate opened slowly. The car stopped. Will turned off the engine and sat still for a few seconds. He got out, letting the rain soak his shoulders, then went to the back. He opened the rear door and leaned in, his voice deep but gentle. "Get out, girls! You're soaked. Let's go inside." Chloe didn't move, just stared at him. Mia looked at her sister, waiting. After a few tense seconds, Chloe finally pulled her sister's hand and got out of the car. The two stood together under the porch, their eyes full of caution. Will pushed open the heavy front door. Inside, the lights shone brightly, but the space felt cold and empty. He turned to them, his tone firm. "For now, this will be your home," Mia whispered, a mix of fear and curiosity. "Your house is so big." Chloe pulled her closer, muttering under the sound of the rain. "Don't trust anyone, Mia, especially him. Our stepmom was nice too. She promised she'd never leave us, but then she changed. Adults are always like that." Will was close enough to hear every word. He stopped dead, the cold rain running down his cheeks. A deep pain welled in his chest, because he knew the girl wasn't wrong. Chloe's trust had been shattered. He didn't say anything else. He just stepped back and held the door wide open. The warm yellow light spilled out, illuminating the girls' tear-streaked faces. Mia looked at her sister, then cautiously stepped inside. Chloe, still holding her hand, finally followed. Will remained on the porch, letting the rain soak him. He knew that from this moment on, the battle wasn't just against Isabel, but against the fear and mistrust living inside these girls. Chloe led her sister to sit in a corner of the vast living room, whispering just low enough for only Mia to hear. "It's just us two. No matter where we are, I'll protect you. But don't trust him yet, Mia. Adults are only nice when they need something." Will stood nearby, listening. He closed his eyes, letting the pain stab his chest. He barely slept that night. The image of the two girls huddled in the corner of the living room wouldn't leave him. Chloe's words, sharp as a knife, repeated over and over. With the first light of dawn, he was already awake. He went down to the kitchen. In a house accustomed to silence, he felt the need for something different. He decided to make breakfast himself, a rare habit long forgotten. Toast, fried eggs, some fruit. He arranged everything carefully on the long dining room table. Just as he set down the last glass of milk, the sound of small footsteps echoed softly. Mia appeared first, wearing an oversized nightgown the housekeeper, Mrs. Gutierrez, had found. Her hair was messy, her eyes still swollen. Chloe followed closely, still holding her hand, her eyes alert, as if everything around her could be a trap. Will smiled gently and pulled out a chair. "Come on, sit down. Let's have breakfast." Chloe remained silent. Mia's eyes blinked, looking at the food on the table. After a few seconds, Chloe dragged a chair out for her sister, settled her in, and sat down next to her, never letting go of her hand. The air at the table was heavy. Mia held the spoon, her hand trembling. When she tried to take a bite of egg, the spoon slipped and fell onto the table. The sharp clang broke the silence. Mia flinched, her face turning pale. She quickly lowered her head and whispered, I'm sorry." Will didn't speak immediately. He calmly picked up the spoon and handed it back to her. His voice was low and warm. "It's okay. No one here is going to scold you for dropping a spoon." Mia's eyes widened. She looked at him as if she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. Chloe frowned. She pushed her sister's plate closer and slid her own portion toward her. "Eat. I'm not hungry." Will noticed the gesture. "If you don't eat," he said softly, keeping his tone even, "how will you have the strength to protect her?" Chloe froze, her eyes flashing with defiance. She stared at Will. Finally, in silence, she pulled her plate back, took a small bite, and brought it to her mouth. Will said nothing more. He just watched the two girls. After breakfast, Will went to his office. The estate had a longtime housekeeper, Mrs. Teresa Gutierrez, a 60-year-old woman who rarely interfered in her employer's private affairs. But that day, seeing the two girls, she spoke softly to Will. "Sir, they are so wretched, but perhaps what they need most right now isn't a house, but someone who is truly by their side." Will nodded slightly. He knew she was right. Meanwhile, Mia was tiptoeing down the hallway, her eyes full of curiosity and fear. Chloe was right behind her. Passing a large wooden door, Mia pushed it slightly. It opened with a creak, revealing a large room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. It was Will's library. Mia's mouth opened in amazement. She went in, her small fingers brushing the spines of the books. After a moment, she took one, hugged it to her chest, and settled into a large armchair. She had barely read a few pages when her eyelids grew heavy, and she soon fell asleep. When Will returned, he saw her there. He walked silently and carefully placed a light blanket over her shoulders. He leaned in, his expression softening. "Your father always talked about you too," he whispered. He was so proud of Chloe and Mia. In the doorway, Chloe stood in the shadows. She saw Will leaning over her little sister and heard every word he murmured. For a second her eyes softened, but then she shook her head hard, reminding herself not to believe. She turned and walked away quickly, as if trying to escape the emotions that had suddenly washed over her. That afternoon, Will asked Mrs. Gutierrez to prepare a small, tidy room for them. Chloe gave a faint thanks, then silently led her sister inside. Night fell. As the two sisters were arranging their few belongings, Mia accidentally dropped the picture frame of their mother. The sound of breaking glass echoed faintly. Chloe immediately picked it up, terrified that the only image of her mother might be lost. But as she lifted it, they discovered a small, hidden compartment in the wooden frame. From it, an old, firmly sealed envelope slipped out. The two froze. Chloe held the envelope with trembling hands, her eyes wide. "Mia," she whispered. "What is this?" Just then, Will appeared at the door. His eyes stopped on the envelope Chloe was holding. Before he could speak, the girl quickly hid it behind her back, her gaze lit with distrust. "It's a memory of our parents. Please, don't touch it. Please." Will stood still, certain that a secret had just come to light, one that could change everything. Before we continue, please take a moment to leave a comment about this story and rate it from 1 to 10. How are you feeling? If there's anything you'd like to share, I'm always here to listen. I hope you find a moment of peace and reflection as you follow this healing story and its journey of courage and justice. Chloe clutched the envelope, her breathing fast. Will stayed near the door, making no sudden moves. He understood that if he pushed, the girl would bolt. His voice was firm and low. "Chloe, I don't want to take it. But if your father left that, it might be something you need to know." Chloe looked up, tears in her eyes but hardened by caution. She didn't trust him. Mia, standing beside her, whispered, "Sister, open it. Maybe it's what Dad wanted us to see." Chloe's small hands trembled as she broke the old seal. Inside was a folded paper. She read it line by line. The handwriting was messy, but immediately familiar. Her voice trembled, reading aloud. "I, Mark Thompson, leave all my assets, including this house and these lands, to my 2 daughters, Chloe and Mia Thompson." Chloe froze. Hot tears fell onto the old paper. She clutched it to her chest and broke down, sobbing. "Stepmom lied. Dad never wanted to abandon us." Mia burst into tears, throwing herself into her sister's arms. Will's hand clenched into a fist. He wasn't surprised by Isabel, but this was different. It was cruelty in its purest form. A name surfaced in his mind. Roger Stone, a lawyer known for his shady tactics. Will had seen him with Isabel before, but assumed she was just seeking legal advice. "Isabel didn't do this alone," Will said, his tone firm. "Someone is helping her. Most likely Roger Stone." Chloe wiped her tears, her eyes red but burning with determination. "Uncle Will you help us get our house back?" He held her gaze. He wouldn't make empty promises. "I can't promise a specific outcome, but I promise you this. I will fight to the very end. Not for the property, but for the truth. And for you too." 2 days later, as Will and the girls were reviewing the will, the sudden chime of the gate bell echoed through the house. Mrs. Gutierrez hurried in, her face worried. "Mr. Mason, Mrs. Carter is here. And she's not alone." "There's a man with her." Will stood up. He already knew. He motioned for the girls to stay inside and walked decisively to the porch. Isabel, in an expensive coat, and Roger Stone, in an impeccable black suit, stood there. Stone's gold-rimmed glasses flashed. "William," Isabel said with a thin smile, You're holding something that doesn't belong to you. I've come to get it. Roger Stone stepped forward, his voice precise. Mr. Mason, I advise you not to get involved. This is a legally notarized will, he said, holding up a file. According to it, all assets and guardianship belong to my client. If you continue to keep these minors, you could be charged with unlawful interference. Behind him, Chloe ran out, clutching the handwritten will. You're lying! Dad left us the house. He left us, Stone's lips curled. A child's fantasy. That piece of paper is meaningless. The notarized document is law. Will stepped in front of Chloe. A family doesn't throw children onto the street after a funeral. We will let the court decide which document is the fantasy. Isabel's face twisted in anger. You'll regret this, Will. You have no idea what you're getting into. We'll see you in court, Will said, his voice like ice. The preliminary hearing was set. The small Napa town was buzzing. Just as they entered the courthouse, a man in a blue suit approached. Chloe, Mia! Chloe's eyes lit up. Uncle Steve! She ran and hugged him. It was Steve Thompson, her father's younger brother, who worked in another state. I thought you wouldn't come. I wouldn't miss this for the world, Steve said, hugging them both. I'll protect you. Your family. Will watched the scene, a vague uneasiness stirring in him. Steve's comfort seemed a little too perfect. That night, back at the estate, Will couldn't sleep. He was heading downstairs when he heard Steve's voice on the phone in the hallway. Will froze, pressing himself against the half-open door. Yes, I did my part. Steve's voice was low but decisive. Just don't forget to give me the plot of land you promised me. I don't want any more entanglements. Will felt the blood drain from his face. The betrayal hit him like a physical blow. At the top of the stairs, Chloe had woken up, thirsty. She had heard only fragments. In the land. Promise. Land. She looked at Will, her voice small and trembling. What did he mean? Why did Uncle Steve mention land? Will turned, his heart heavy. He couldn't tell her the whole truth. He spoke slowly, his voice strained. Not everyone in the family is honest, Chloe. That was all it took. The small flame of hope that had just ignited in her was extinguished. So he betrayed us too? She cried, her voice breaking. Then who is honest? Maybe not even you. She turned and ran back upstairs, slamming her door. The sound echoed through the house, piercing Will's chest like a knife. He sank into a chair, his head in his hands, hearing her muffled sobs. The next morning, Mrs. Gutierrez handed him an old brown envelope left in the mailbox. No return address. Inside were scattered accounting sheets. In the corner, a familiar signature, Roger Stone. And on a small note, an address, 143 Magnolia Drive. It was the home of Mrs. Evelyn Miller, a bitter widow known for disliking everyone, including the girls. Will drove to the house. Evelyn, a thin woman in her 60s, opened the door, her eyes cold. Why did you send me this? Will asked directly. Evelyn's voice was sharp. To show you that not everything Isabel presents is real. But don't involve me. I don't want trouble with Stone. You can avoid it, Will said, his voice low and firm. But those two girls can't. They have no one else. Evelyn's face hardened. You think I don't know loss? My son Diego, he worked as an intern in Stone's office. He died of a heart condition while Stone promised me help, and then abandoned us. I know exactly how ruthless he is. I won't be destroyed again. I was 13 when my own family threw me out, Will said, his voice heavy. I know that feeling, and I won't let Chloe and Mia walk that same path. But I can't do it alone. You know silence only lets evil win. Evelyn's hand trembled on the doorframe. Just then, Mia, who had woken from a nightmare and followed Will, ran up to the porch, clutching the photo of her mother. Uncle Will! I couldn't find you! Evelyn froze, her eyes landing on the photo in Mia's hands. Old memories surfaced. She saw her own fragile son, Diego, clutching a photo of his father. Do you have a son? Mia asked timidly. Evelyn's composure broke. Yes, she whispered, tears welling. But he's gone far away. I miss my dad too, Mia said, her words piercing Evelyn's armor. Evelyn slumped into a chair, sobbing. I know Stone forged documents. I saw him, my Diego. Before he died, he brought me photocopies. He whispered, "Mom, he's faking signatures." I just kept them. I was too scared." Will sat across from her. "You're not alone. If you dare to stand up, I will stand with you. Not just for Chloe and Mia, but for Diego." Evelyn looked at him, her face soaked in tears. "If I face Stone, I'll lose everything." "No," Will said firmly. "This time you'll find yourself again. And I promise you will not be alone." The day of the trial, the courthouse was a media circus. Isabel, dressed in simple black, gave a tearful statement to the cameras. "I only want what's best for my husband's children. I have always loved them as my own." Chloe yelled, "You're lying! You threw us out! Order!" The judge, Judge Harrison, slammed his gavel. The trial began. Roger Stone, confident, presented the notarized will. "Your Honor, this is legally binding. The rest is emotional noise." Just as the judge began to review it, the doors opened. Evelyn Miller walked in, clutching a file. "Your Honor," her voice was hoarse but strong, "I have proof. This is the original file. I witnessed Roger Stone alter the will." The room exploded. Isabel's face went white. Stone merely raised an eyebrow. "Bring those documents here," the judge ordered. Evelyn laid the papers down. "I have been silent too long. If I stay quiet, these two girls will lose everything, just like I did." "Objection." Stone's voice was calm. "A desperate claim from a grieving woman. But I have one last piece of proof, one that will make this all a farce." He produced a USB drive. My client's final conversation with her husband. The audio played. Mark's voice, hoarse, heavy, filled the room. "I want all my assets to go to Isabel. She will raise my daughters better than anyone." A gasp went through the courtroom. Chloe slumped in her seat, devastation on her face. Mia whispered, "Sister, did Dad not want us?" Will's blood ran cold. Could it be true? "Your Honor, I object!" A new voice rang out. It was Alejandro Cruz, Will's lawyer. "This recording shows clear signs of manipulation." Stone laughed. "A desperate lawyer's fantasy." "I request an immediate forensic analysis," Cruz insisted, pointing to the screen. At second 12, the speaker's breath cuts off abruptly. The word Isabel is inserted at a different tone. The background noise is inconsistent. "It's fabricated." The judge paused, then nodded. "The court will allow the analysis." The technician ran the file through the analysis software. The courtroom held its breath. Finally, a bright red line appeared on the screen with the text, "Data altered, not original." The room erupted. Isabel's face crumpled. Roger Stone stood frozen. "Your Honor," Cruz said, "this proof was manufactured. Using falsified evidence to mislead the court is a felony." "No," Isabel suddenly screamed, lunging for the desk, scattering papers. "It's a trap! They conspired against me. I won't lose!" Guards quickly subdued her as she thrashed, her mask of grief replaced by pure rage. Roger Stone simply held out his hands calmly, a cold smile on his face as the cuffs clicked shut. Judge Harrison slammed his gavel. After reviewing all evidence, the testimony, and the forensic results, this court declares the handwritten will to be valid. The inheritance belongs to Chloe and Mia Thompson. Furthermore, to ensure their well-being, the court names Mr. William Mason as their legal guardian. A collective sigh of relief filled the room. Will turned and knelt, pulling both girls into his arms. Mia whispered, "Sister, we have someone to protect us." Chloe trembled. Then, for the first time, she rested her head on Will's shoulder. That night, the kitchen at the Napa estate was bright. The aroma of chicken soup filled the air. Will fumbled with the ladle. "I'm not a great cook," he said, his face red, "but I wanted to make dinner tonight." Mia giggled. Chloe sat watching, the caution in her eyes finally gone. She put her spoon down. Her voice trembled. "Dad?" Will froze, looking directly at her. "I'm sorry," Chloe whispered, tears welling. "I didn't believe you. I thought you were just like her, kind only when it was convenient." Will knelt beside her chair, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I understand," he said, his own voice thick with emotion. "Because I once thought the same thing. I was abandoned by my own family. I believed no adult truly wanted to protect me. But you two, you gave me a reason to change. Thank you." Chloe burst into tears and threw her arms around his neck. Mia joined the hug, her laughter mixing with sobs. In the warmth of the kitchen, the three of them stood. A new family, finally, whole. Before we continue, please take a moment to leave a comment about this story and rate it from 1 to 10. How are you feeling? If there's anything you'd like to share, I'm always here to listen. I hope you find a moment of peace and reflection as you follow this healing story and its journey of courage and justice.